Hello dear tea friends from around the world, and welcome to a new tea class with me, Stefan Erler, the founder of the Tea Masters blog. I'm very glad to be with you today. I just came back from central Taiwan. I went there this week to look for new winter oolongs and to add to my selection, because this spring's Alishan oolongs, they sold like hot potatoes, and they were gone much faster than I anticipated. So I really was in bad need for some great, fresh, affordable high mountain oolongs, and I've good tidings. I've come back with not one, two, three, but four great high mountain oolongs, and so I also wanted to give you a little bit of feedback about my findings, and as long as I still have the whiff of the high mountain air on my skin and full of memories. I'm still downloading the pictures from my mind and from the computer, and you will see them pop up next week, hopefully soon also on my blog. Really beautiful pictures I took, and wonderful memories from the mountains of Alishan and of Shaninshi. And so, because of this work, I decided to do something a little bit lighter, which requires a bit less preparation, taking some of your questions and doing also frequently asked questions today. And of course, while doing all this, I'm also going to brew tea in front of you live. And today, of course, I had to drink and to brew a tea I just got back from Alishan. It's Qingxing Oolong from Juefeng. And without further waiting, let's start. Usually we do it mid-course, but today I feel thirsty. I still feel a bit sleepy from the travel. Now, the first thing that you realize when you look at winter oolong is there are some more white dots in the green pellets. So this is something you don't see in spring so much, but in winter it's much more common, this white color. And this white color are the buds. The buds are easier to see in spring than in spring, actually. So this is one interesting thing. Now, winter happens in so now end of October, beginning of November. So they have a little bit less sunshine, but the weather still is really great in central Taiwan. We had lots of sunshine in the morning, and there's a particular sweetness and maybe a little bit even more aftertaste in these oolongs than in the spring. So, like usual, we preheat, and we start with the outside, since now it's a bit cold. We don't want to have a thermic shock. And we do the inside of the teapot. Now, while the teapot is warming, we'll be quick. I'm bringing the water again to a full boil. Okay, I'm still not seeing any questions. Please go ahead. Hopla. I hope you don't have technical difficulties to watch me, because I have trouble to watch myself on my tablet. I hope for you it's better. Let's see. Now, yeah, okay. Since it's an unroasted tea, we can pour with some strength. And to help unfold the leaves, can even pour some boiling water on top. And again, I'm a bit curious to see how it performs in the Juni. So far I've had this new tea only in porcelain, in Gaiwan, and in the competition set. Brewed first in Alishan at high altitude, so it's always a bit tricky in Alishan to drink and to taste the teas, because due to the altitude, the water comes to a boil at a lower temperature, and then the taste does not completely come out. Less taste than here in Taipei. So to go around this problem, the farmers themselves, they don't brew so much with the competition set, but with tea bowl, to have a higher concentration of flavors. They brew the tea much stronger than we do. Some really brew very, very strong, like 2 or 3 times the amount that I would take. Definitely lots of freshness. You see, mission accomplished. The leaves have opened up very well. I don't know if you can see that. Maybe not. But yes, they've expanded and taken most of the space. Lots of sweetness, lots of freshness also. Some very light, elegant notes that you only get in high mountains, and only with the good crops. Yeah, definitely this high notes. Hello Heidi, thank you for your first comment. Yeah, in Alishan 1,200, 1,300 meters, it's still okay. It's in Alishan that it's even worse actually, and also with the temperature, it's colder. But over 2,000, boiling is even lower. So let's start with some questions that I've gathered from many interactions with you. And first one is something you can just see. Should I rinse the leaves? Now you see that I did not rinse the leaves. And the reason why you would, why many people ask me this is that in Taiwan there is a tradition of rinsing the leaves. It makes like it's almost kind of part of the ritual, and maybe it did make sense with some very old teas that were maybe stored in an attic and were maybe gathering a little bit too much dust, or maybe it's and people did not really trust the first brew of these old teas. Or maybe also in the past people were drinking more very roasted teas, and roasted teas they are very tightly rolled, and it's not so easy to open up their leaves. And if you don't preheat well, or if you don't preheat, then what people would do is the first rinse would, together with the leaves, would almost be like a way of preheating both the teapot and a little bit the leaves, so that they start a bit to expand, and then it would be easier for in the next brew to expand the leaves. So maybe it makes sense in kind of this way if you don't properly preheat your teapot. But if you properly preheat your teapot, actually with most of the teas you don't want to rinse them. One of the reasons is that it's in the first brew, in the very first brews that the best flavors, the finest flavors come out. So why waste these top flavors and throw them away? Like for sure nobody will rinse green tea leaves. It's definitely the very first brew that is the best, and oolong leaves are even processed at a much higher temperature than green tea, so there's much less risk of germs. Okay, I see another question. I will get to it later on. Let's finish on the rinsing. So also another example is tea bags. Nobody rinses the tea bags, even though the quality of the tea in tea bags is probably considered the lowest compared to loose leaves. But nobody rinses the tea bags, because if you rinse it, the second brew, there's nothing of interest anymore. Even already the first one there's not much of interest, but definitely in the second there will be even less. So if you consider your tea to be safe enough to drink, then you don't. You will think it's also clean enough, and you will not rinse it. You will not need to wash it and throw away the first brew or the first small rinse. Of course, if you would think that your tea is unclean, that it looks not so nice, cloudy, and it has a funny smell, then in this case, well, yes, you should throw away the first rinse, and maybe also the second and the third. What I mean, if the tea is really bad, then don't drink it at all. But rinsing it is not going to, in most cases, is not going to solve the problem. Because usually when a tea is bad, it's bad from inside the leaves, not so much from the outside. So good. Okay, so let's switch to a live question. Elton. Hi Stefan, do you think the altitude would also affect your taste? For example, the air is thinner, and therefore when you sip in, it is a bit like the air-fuel mix of a car driving high up. The car performs differently. Yeah, actually, I also believe that if you are in a different setting, if you're in a different country or different altitude, your taste buds are affected. I also I see this most obviously when I go back to France. I smell different smells. The air smells different. And then all of a sudden my teas also start to taste different. And if you are at the beach, like I also sometimes like to have tea in Kunding on the beach, or if you are drinking in the mountain, the air smells very different, and this definitely does impact your senses. That's also why I like to drink tea where it's made, because at the same time when you're drinking the tea you can relate to how close the tea is to its surroundings. And what I find fascinating is these high mountain oolongs, they do smell like the air in Alishan. So when I drink this tea from Alishan, the smells do remind me of the high mountain altitude. And of course, when you are surrounded by all the air from Alishan, then you feel even much more strongly about the tea, because it's in such a good harmony with the surroundings. The tea and the surroundings really come and make one. But when I'm not in Alishan and drink it here in Taipei or in France, then it's one way to transport me back. But it's yeah, I have a little bit some other smell sensations that bring me back to Taipei or to France, or the place where I am. So the experience is not as all-encompassing, but it's still very enjoyable. Okay, thank you very much for your question. Okay, Heidi also noticed a difference of tastes just walking from inside to outside. Okay, yeah, that's why I also like to have tea outside, outdoors, rather than indoors, and it does really change a lot to the experience of tea when you are in a closer connection with nature. This tea experience can be much more powerful, but that's all. You don't always have this luxury. Sometimes it's too cold, too rainy, and you have to make do with tea at home. And then it's nice to have a little connection to nature also, with a little plant, or with dried leaves. These leaves I collected 2 days ago in Alishan while I was walking on a path to a tea plantation. It's very rare to find these red fallen leaves in Taiwan, so that's why I really wanted to collect them and have them on some fall chashi. Okay, another question I got from friends recently, and I often get, what about water temperature? Also the Oxford philosophy students last week, they also asked me this question. They've heard that some teas you have to brew at a certain temperature, 80 or 85, some other teas at 90, Oolongs 95, or was it boiling? Well, we're going to make this very, very simple, and it's always boiling water for all the teas. Now, you tell me, oh, some teas don't work so well with boiling water. Well, then the problem is with the tea, not with the water temperature. the higher the water temperature, the more aromas come out of the leaves. So even in Sancha, when the farmers test their bilochun, they use boiling water. With T. Parker in his tea classes, when we drink the best Longjing or bilochun from China, we also use boiling water, even from silver kettle, so extra pure and extra strong in temperature. And the teas then always taste great if the tea is great. Now, this is how you will know if your tea is great. Does it resist the water that is at a boiling stage? If it does not pass this test, then it means you have a little bit an inferior tea. This is not something to be ashamed of. Sometimes, of course, if you did not pay such a high price, you cannot expect to have always a tea that can handle boiling temperature. This is especially the case with so the cheaper green teas or cut red teas. They will release a bit too many fragrances and too much astringency or too much bitterness. And one way to handle this would be to reduce the temperature. The more skillful way to handle this that we have is one to, if it's a good tea, well, you should first try to find a good tea. So, for instance, in my selection, or you can work with your ware, find a ware that will transform this bitterness, astringency in something more mellow. For instance, Ishin clay for roasted oolong, for instance. Or you can pour maybe in a more gentle way to so that the leaves will release a little bit fewer aromas with a high temperature. Or what else can you do? Less water, less tea, a better ware or more suitable ware, the way you pour. Well, I think that's about it. And of course, choosing better leaves. And then you have also a better understanding of your tea, and also this will enable you to make progress and to know where you can find better tea. Okay, so always boiling water at least to test the tea for the first time. If it's really not working well, either you don't drink it, or in the future use maybe some of these tricks, or a lower temperature if that's really what it takes. What else? How many brews can I brew my leaves? Oh, this reminds me I should do my next brew. So, how many brews? This actually depends on just on you and on how you like your tea. If you like your tea very strong, maybe you'll use a bit more leaves, but then you'll probably also make longer brews, and then this will deplete the aromas in the leaves a bit faster. But if you drink your tea light and you do very short brews, then you might be able to make more brews. So there is no definitive rule about how many brews you can make with a certain quantity of leaves. It also depends on how strong you brew, which depends on how you like your tea, and how many brews is not necessarily a sign of quality. You can make lots of brews with a tea that is medium quality, and maybe a bit fewer brews with a high quality tea. It depends also on how you feel in that moment, how thirsty you are, how much you can drink, how big your teapot is. Of course, if you have a very large teapot, you will probably try not to make so many brews, because if you are a certain limited number of guests, you are not able to drink so much tea. So, but let's say for in my situation right now, with a little amount that I took, that is exactly filling, or maybe slightly less, my teapot, I'll do at least 3, and then actually the rule is you continue as long as you like it. Okay. Now for the second brew, I don't want to push them yet so much, so I'm not pouring on top of the teapot now. I will do it for the third brew, so that I have something to further push the leaves, but now I don't want to push the leaves too much, and I can pour rather quickly because the leaves have just opened, and for the second brew you don't need to wait so long. And the color has to be nice green, not too yellow. Now on my boutique, the brew will appear quite yellowish because it's a 3 gram 6 minutes brew, so a lot of aromas have come out, but and actually it's still very nice to drink. No bitterness, no astringency, but with this way of brewing Gongfu, you don't go 6 minutes, of course, and then the brew will be much more really pale green, slightly yellow color. Okay, cheers. Okay, let's continue. Now, often this year a bit less because of the COVID. There are much fewer people who are traveling to Taiwan, and therefore I also had much fewer opportunities to make tea classes one-on-one with such tea friends who come from abroad. I missed that. That's why I'm doing these virtual tea classes with you now, and but lots of travelers, when they arrive, they would send me an email and ask me, where can I find good tea in Taipei? Or and well, I'm always a bit embarrassed to answer this question, because for 2 reasons. One, I'm also selling, so if you are contacting me, you could also simply ask me to provide you tea, since I have a pretty large selection on tea-masters.com. And also, frankly, since I'm purchasing now my teas directly, especially for the fresh teas from farmers in the mountains all around Taiwan, I don't know which are the good shops in Taipei anymore. So, last time I really purchased something in the shop was as not as a professional, was like 20 years ago. So I don't know the good places for tea. So this I almost cannot answer. And but then there are some who will even ask me, oh, which farmer should I go and visit to find good tea? And then again, it's a very tough question because, well, this is a bit my trade secret. Where are my sources? It's like you're asking the engineers at Microsoft, can you send me the code of your latest software? I'd like to have a peek how you write your code. Maybe that's not a very tactful question to ask. And also actually most farmers they are often very busy during the tea season, and they are not really welcoming tourists, visitors. Of course, they would be welcoming tea vendors who purchase large quantities, but they are, if you just come for one gin, that's more a waste of their time. Also, they don't speak English in 99.9% of the cases, and so they are not really equipped to receive you. So if I were to send you to my usual contacts, they would not be very glad about that. And also, who makes good tea is also a question of chance, of luck, of course, of skill, but luck also plays a part. Like in spring, it depends a lot on when you do your harvest. Is it going to be a good day or not? Right now there are some tensions on the labor to pick the leaves, since due to the COVID it's not really possible to have foreign workers come on short notice and leave. They have to go through 2 weeks quarantine in Taiwan, so it's they are using a lot of Taiwanese foreign laborers. These are Vietnamese or Indonesians who have been in Taiwan for a while because they married into Taiwan. So they married farmers, and so they are over there. But there's a little bit of attention for workers who are skilled at picking the leaves, and very often the dates are set in advance. Now, except really a very big rain, they will reschedule. But if the weather is a little bit grayish, they will still pick the leaves, because if they don't pick them today, then these workers are working in a different field the next day. So it's now or never. So this explains why it's not always even the farmer's fault that he did not pick the leaves on the most perfect conditions, and therefore his tea will not always be perfect, because some were lucky to pick on a better day than others, and therefore you have to do. My job is exactly to go to try and to find the ones that were lucky, to be able to provide a better tea to my customers. So again, these are questions I hope I'm not getting again. So I still wanted to mention them. Where to buy tea in Taipei, or what are the good farmers? These are tough questions for me. Don't ask me. Okay. I had a question. Is my chabu washable? So yes, it is washable. It's made of cotton, 2 pieces of cotton, and inside there's a third layer that absorbs the water so that if there are a little bit of water spots or tea spots, the water will be absorbed inside. But if you have if you are drinking very dark tea, it will it's more likely to make tea stains than if you drink high mountain oolong. Some stains are bound to appear. Now, I am not washing my own chabu, even though some have some stains. I think I washed once, and it's possible. Just then you have to also to iron it. But for me, the tea stains are like the patina on an old piece of porcelain. Here you can see this one is not very clean below. It has gathered a lot of I don't know, earth. Maybe it was buried at some time. It has lots of imperfections, but these imperfections in the concept of wabi are part of life. They are part of the use of the chabu or the equipment, so they don't really bother me, and I tend to ignore them or to feel that a history is building. These stains are part of my training. The more you try, of course, to make few stains when you have a chabu. This is one of the kind of hidden advantage. The obvious advantage is the chabu is beautiful. It will induce these colors and design will give you some ideas, some feelings. But the hidden advantage is that you are paying much more attention the way you pour in the cups, because you don't want to stain it. So, and the few stains you make are then the little mistakes you make. And when you see your stains again, it's can only part of your progress. And so nobody's perfect. We have to also accept our imperfections, and to see a little imperfection in the chabu, I think for me it's okay. But if you really like it 100% clean, of course, go ahead, you can clean it. Another question about roasted oolongs. Is it necessary to roast them regularly? And just 3 days ago in Shaninshi, or actually in Lugu, with a farmer whose field is in Shaninshi, we talked about aged oolongs, and he was telling me, you know what, Stefan? I've been drinking tea for over 60 years, me only maybe 20, and I really come to the conclusion that a good tea, it does not need to be re-roasted again. If it's well roasted to begin with, and then you let it sit, you don't touch it, you put it away, you forget about it, and it's going to change and become so good, so perfect. And so this is like he was telling me, sharing his experience after 60 years of experience, and he came to this conclusion. Luckily, in my tea classes with T. Parker told us gave us a very same lesson, and so you are glad. I'm glad I can share it with you without waiting for 60 years, and that you know that actually the very best aged oolongs are those that are roasted once, well roasted to begin with, and then simply aged without touching them. And the reason why they are re-roasted regularly, sometimes in Taiwan or very often, is because Taiwan is a very humid island. It's a tropical island, very hot in summer, hot and humid in summer, and if you don't store your teas well, they will absorb this moisture, and then roasting can be useful or even necessary to reduce this moisture in the leaves. But if you are in the West, in a drier climate, and if you have a better way of storing your tea than most farmers, who will very often open, take some leaves, close, open several times. If you do a better job in not opening your bags so often, then the leaves won't get so moist, and you can store them much better, much cleaner, and they really don't require any re-roasting. If even in Taiwan, a well-stored oolong does not need re-roasting. Actually, in a drier climate, it completely does not need any re-roasting at all. Okay, what else? So continue. If you have questions, you still have a few minutes. I don't have so many questions left, so hurry up. Today is your chance. No, somebody asked. By the way, how to store high mountain oolong best? And should I use my Zesha jar? Now, high mountain oolongs, you see, I've put them in my celadon porcelain jar, and the flavors, the aromas really come to life in such a jar. So it's really useful to store them here if you want to drink it rather soon. If you don't have a jar, actually, I simply recommend to keep them in the original foil. I'm always choosing high quality foils that are how you say, sun resistant. Now, you cannot see through these foils. There are also cheaper foils on the market where you can see through, the light will go through. These foils therefore are a bit not so well protective of the leaves, but the foils that I'm using are a bit thicker, and they provide a better protection. And the advantage of these foils is you can minimize the air inside. With a jar, the air obviously cannot be minimized. Since you don't have, most of you, vacuum machine to vacuum seal your bags, the best way would be to drink one tea at a time, not open up all your teas, but try to open one, maybe two, to alternate from time to time, but not all the teas at the same time. Like this, you better preserve their freshness for a bit 2-3 years in the case of high mountain oolong. But there's an exception. Maybe you want to get the aging of the high mountain oolong. Maybe you not necessarily like the very fresh fragrances, but you like the transformation, this post-oxidation. And then the best way to go would be a porcelain jar, or to keep it open and not to seal it with a vacuum seal, but simply to open it and wait with a little bit of air to interact with the leaves. If it's vacuum sealed, the aging will be much slower. So if you want to age your and transform your high mountain oolong, then it's best to let some air in and then close. But so still, air is a little bit the enemy of fresh leaves, unless you want to do the post-oxidation, you want to transform them. Okay, now, which teas do you brew in a gaiwan? Asks Heidi Joe. Oh, thank you very much for this question. Actually, it's a very good question, because in a gaiwan, basically you can brew all the teas. This is really the good thing about the gaiwan over a teapot. Like for this teapot, I would only use it for high mountain oolongs due to its round shape, and because it's porous and this kind of Ishing clay very often works always best with one kind of tea, and also it has a memory. So if you have brewed high mountain oolong before, the fragrances of high mountain oolong will remain inside the teapot, inside the clay. So for one teapot you only use one kind of tea, but with gaiwan, a porcelain gaiwan. Let me see if I have one here. Hopla. Ah, here it is. Sorry for the scare. So yeah, if you have a gaiwan, actually you can brew all kinds of tea inside: white, green, yellow, oolong, red, and dark teas. And because it's glazed, so it's not going to retain any tea fragrances from previous teas, from different teas, and it is really the universal, all-round brewing vessel, and therefore it's really the vessel that I recommend for beginners, because it's going to be so versatile. You can use it with all the teas you have, and it will be a very neutral way of brewing, because the porcelain is not going to impact the taste. Like with the Juni, we really hope to impact it in a positive way, thanks to its high temperature it can reach. We want to have more fragrances come out. And with the pores, we want it to be a little bit smoothened. Okay, so for this third brew, I've poured boiling water on top to push the temperature even higher. And here we go. Okay, thank you for this question. So if you have another question, this is another time. It's going to, otherwise I'm going to wrap it up and enjoy my third brew. You can see I'm really try to get all the water out so that it won't continue to brew. maybe you can see better the leaves now. Fully opened. One almost comes out. Oh, beautiful. Very typical of the high mountain. Such a large leaf and completely flexible and tender. And here's the second one, and it's really 2 leaves and a bud. And what leaves? Wow. This one also. 2 leaves and a bud here. And it is torn. This is how we see here the stem is torn. That's how we see that it's hand harvested. Beautiful. Okay. So let me see. Were there any more questions? No. So today's music has also stopped. It was the Roads Diverge by Noam Wiesenberg. Some jazz music that I also supported through crowdfunding. Understand he's another Israeli musician in New York, in the same probably a friend of Oded. So thank you, Oded, for this connection, and thank you, Noam, for this jazz music. I thought that jazz going from one subject to another was more in harmony with this class of doing different questions and going very quick from answering different questions very quickly. It's still very, very sweet, and then some very nice underlying notes. What are these notes? A bit more fruity, actually, almost. And the purity of the high mountain is definitely there. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you'll enjoy the high mountain oolongs that I've selected in Alishan and in Shaninshi, 1 Jinshuan, 3 Qingxing oolong. And see you next week, same place. Okay, bye bye. Love you.